practitioner, I'm a mental health therapist, reflexologist, Reiki master, hypnotherapist. I found that we have disconnected a lot from our original source of being in our history. And I find that it is affecting our families, it's affecting our communities, relationships, all as a whole, until we learn how to reconnect to the source. With that, as you see in my title, the reconnection theory, the X, is very key. The X is the majestic letter. It symbolizes a genetic crossing of different civilizations of humankind through the godfather Asur. And this letter, a lot of times in Egyptian letters, they have different meanings and different symbolisms. And after the times, we see the letter X as Malcolm X, Generation X, that represent a society or culture of people. With my title, I'm wanting to connect us back to our source. And a lot of times, a lot of us have been disconnected and feel like we're disassociated from the original being. And it's about bringing us back together and uniting not only spiritually, but with our physical beings and how we can come back together to bring the source back to us. The reconnection theory overall is how we can reconnect as a civilization through generations that have been disconnected from our original source of being. And that is my purpose of educating through my work with children, through my work with psychotherapy. However, a lot of it comes back to knowing who we are, where we came from, our original source of being. And I'm doing a lot of work with the youth. This is a concern. A lot of people say, where do we start? How do we move forward? Some of us are already stuck in our ways, so where do we go? A lot of times I say we need to go back to the youth, bring them up, teach them about who they are, where they come from, because a lot of times in our society, they're not getting. We're assuming they're getting a lot of information, but if we're not bringing it to them, they're not going to get it, and they are being led to a lot of false assumptions.
You haven't come and checked on your
Understanding what the original source of being is, and that's a lot that we have to do as a community to re-educate our community, is understanding. Originally, we did not begin as slaves. We are a population of people that came kings, queens, we had civilizations that we built, that we strive upon. And now we have lost a lot of our history, our source of history, where we came from, and what we built upon, until we go back as far as bringing Sankofa, bringing things forward to the present. We are not going to be able to move forward as a culture until we really truly understand where we came from and linking the past to the present. A lot of times when we talk about culture and our origins, yes, it did start before slavery. And a lot of times that's not what's getting taught in schools. That's not what we're teaching our youth. And even in the youth, they're not even really getting the whole history of slavery, the origins, and how we overcame it also. So within that, we have to understand within our source that where we actually began from. And a lot of times we are not understanding that in order to know how to move forward. When we talk about a disconnection, one of the things I go back and I talk to a lot of my elders, I talk to people in the community and try to figure out where did things start becoming disconnected? Where did this all start? And going back, slavery was a major effect on how we are today. It disrupted a lot of our being, our origins, and where we're trying to move forward to. And as you see, the definition is submission to a dominating influence. And one thing I like to emphasize, how can we grow as a culture if we don't understand where we came from, but more or less, if we're being taught by a society of people that is not our original origin of being, then it causes confusion. As a licensed therapist, a lot of things that I deal with in working with our population, our youth, and our culture, is a lot of misdiagnosis that we have of African Americans. I want to talk a little bit and incorporate a lot of with the mental health. I really don't feel like a lot of us have mental health issues. Some of it I think is imbalances in the mind, body, and spirit. We came from a culture of people, when we have certain issues, we never actually went to a psychotherapist or a mental health therapist. We would go to our churches, we would go to our elders. So now we're living in a society that anytime we're thinking differently, we act differently, or we handle things differently, they want to put a label on us. Now you see a lot of our youth being diagnosed with ADHD, you see a lot of people being diagnosed with bipolar, anxiety, stress disorders. A lot of these disorders that we are dealing with are not necessarily all a medical or a mental condition, but it could be a way of life. And going into that, we as African Americans, I'm sure everybody's heard of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, that a lot of military vets or people that suffered a trauma of some sort have dealt with the after effects of this life-threatening event. With African Americans, many of us are dealing with PTSD slavery. A lot of the diagnosis that you get with PTSD or the symptoms or the effects, you're dealing with fear, flashbacks, anxiety, hyperarousal, easy to get agitated, easy to act in anger, paranoia. Really and truly, most of us as African Americans, particularly our African American males, are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis. And then people want to say, well, what's wrong with you? Other cultures look at us and define us by our mannerisms. This was something that really bothered me working within the school systems with our youth. We are very creative, we're very active, we're very animated. When we get upset, we talk with our kids, we move a lot, we get loud, and then it's intimidating in some other cultures because that's not how they communicate. And then the first thing you want to see is there's a label with being oppositional, defiant, mood disorders, and things of that nature. A lot of this is coming from society. A lack of ability to deal with day-to-day coping mechanisms in a healthy way. And a lot of those mechanisms that's being taught is being taught from another culture who have learned to deal with these same issues in a different way than our culture. So coming back with that, as I talk about the whole reconnection, is reconnecting with a way of life that resonates within us, within our community, and not with another culture. Because if not, that's what's going to cause disease, that's what's going to cause distress, because that is not what resonates within our culture, within our genetic DNA makeup from that. So understanding that as you have family children that are in the schools and are dealing with that, you really want to keep an open mind to who's helping that child, what perspective, what theory are they dealing with. Because if someone in today's time is dealing with a lot of issues in society, you want to make sure they're getting the right foundation to grow off of. Otherwise, it can cause more of an imbalance as they develop through their different maturity levels and stages. So moving on, talking about the effect of PTSD that we occurred through slavery, is understanding how this disconnect is affecting our culture and the society that we live in at this present time. This disconnect is tearing us apart, and if we as a community do not come together anytime soon, we are going to be leading up to a lot of genocide to a certain amount. We got to think about this whole disconnect through slavery and the miseducation. First, the education system. We have got to take back the power of educating our own. If you can't do it, if you're not able to homeschool from that aspect, at least supplement the education that they're getting in the school system. Push your child's knowledge to another level than what they're just getting in history books. Even ourselves as adults, take the time to re-educate yourself, to understand there's other knowledge out there, there's other civilizations, there's other type of history that we can learn that help benefit who we are, to understand how education is very key. A lot of people grew up in the integration when schools became integrated. That was a time that was very critical with the development of education. At that time, many of us really didn't ask that we wanted to be integrated. We just want equal schools, fair opportunity to receive education. We had our own support. We had our own community. We had our own schools. When integration came in, now you have a culture that is teaching you a different way of learning that does not resonate in how you actually learn. A lot of kids in the African American cultures of color were very animated, hands-on. We like to do more hands-on projects compared to sitting still and just reading, writing, arithmetic. Now that you have in schools where everything is about scores, not really comprehension. So at this point in time, we need to take back our education system, educate our own, make sure they're getting the education, understanding that there is more to history besides African Americans besides the slavery Holocaust. Another thing I have to say that is affecting the disconnect now, sadly to say, is the music, the media industry. It is sending subliminal messages out, not only to our youth, to people in general. I always say, if you do not explore and understand other type of music and take the opportunity, if all you looked at was the videos that we see on TV, you would have a very confused misconception of what the culture is doing and exploring. But yet, on the other hand, I have to say that even though we may not want to hear it and we may not understand some of the music, that is a reflection of our youth. So if that disturbs you, instead of cutting it off or talking about the youth and what they're saying, then we need to go back and try to figure out what is it that we can go back to help these youth speak about more positive things in the community, how it can uplift the community, and how it can enhance the community. Because right now, if you see what you see on videos, we are idolizing sexuality. I love Beyonce, but if you look at a lot of Beyonce videos at this point in time, I cannot say I would want my 13-year-old daughter to sit and look at all Beyonce and to emulate the sexuality that she presents. Grown people can distort the difference between the two. But if it's a young female that is coming up, that is what she wants to do. She wants to surfboard, as they say. So we want to make sure that we are emulating the right image for our youth to grow up and to understand. Black families is now a threat. We have to understand we have to come back together in our families, but a lot of this is stemming back from slavery, where we were tearing our family support systems apart. The women were used for sexual purposes, the men were to sow their oats, to make kids, make babies. And so therefore now as we move into modern times, it's still some of the same traditions that were taught in slavery by the oppressors that we still emulate now. And a lot of times we as females, we want to talk about the men, and there's no good men out there, but if that's the perception that we have, you will not find one. So in the meantime, we have to figure out how to come back together to bring our families back together. We have become such an individualized society, and our culture grew up as a collective society where we come together as a whole unit to impact and sustainable living. So, reconnecting our families is very key for survival. The next thing to talk about that has caused a major disconnection is religion. A lot of people may be upset about that, but it's not saying what religion, but understanding that a lot of times religion has put a lot of guidelines instead of spirituality on our lifestyles. And we're so caught up into the doctrines of what's being taught than looking at the true nature of the spirit and the higher power that is there to connect. A lot of times we seek outside sources to gain that instead of going within and understanding that the spirit resides within us. And now we're in a different time period. Instead of going to the outside sources, we need to go seek within. We need to reconnect with our original spiritual practices, whether that's what you choose to practice, but at least research it. Do more understanding of what that spirituality practice is about to connect back to it. Because if you look at it, a lot of things from traditional African traditions have filtered down into other current day religions. Everything has an original source. Nothing is right or wrong. As time goes, as we evolve, as we change, things develop, things enlighten, but at the end of the day, if you stick with the original source, you're going to find the truth. Moving on, we talked about our education system. Another thing that's a big disconnect in our communities right now is this war on drugs. Drugs is a major issue in our community, but where are the drugs coming from? We have to look at that. It's not that we just decide that we want to go up and be the drug dealers. We have to understand who is putting the drugs in our community for us to be the drug dealers. And understanding that and understanding the war on drugs, but have a better understanding of how we need to fight this problem that is tearing us apart. When crack came into our communities in the 80s, it started destroying it. And this is where we have to rebuild, and how you see the trickle-down effect from the 80s to where we are now with the impact of drugs and the drug laws. From there, we have to realize we're talking about the privatization of our prisons and our industries is a major thing now, and the easiest way to fill our prisons up is with the different charges we have with a lot of our drug laws. With that, we have to understand the prison industry now is taking our youth. It's taking our men. And this is where modern day slavery has now evolved into the private prisons. You have people like Michael Jordan at this point in time that are invested in these private prisons. I find that out recently. You have Viacom. If you're familiar with Viacom, that's one of the main industries of the music industry. Viacom is an investor into the private prisons. So when you look at that from a holistic perspective, you wonder why Viacom is very important for them to put certain music out that enhances sex, that's going to lead to STDs and drugs, that enhances the whole sale of drugs and the drug trade because it glorifies it. And then you have the youth that are wanting to emulate this, and then the only thing that's going to do is slide them right into the private prisons. And at this point in time, with these government contracts for privatization of prisons, they have these contracts with the state that the state has to keep these prisons at a certain level of occupancy in order to keep the prisons going. So in order to do that, that's when we have meaningful laws. You have certain laws now. You're being caught with any type of substance abuse. You may have a legal gun. If it's a drug charge, all of a sudden that legal gun now becomes illegal. Now you're dealing with a substance abuse crime with a weapon, and you're considered a violent criminal. So there's so many glitches in it that we have to educate. We have to know our laws, especially for our young youth that are coming up and not aware of this, to keep them from moving and transitioning into the prison system. So within that, that is the key thing of where this breakdown and disconnection is coming from, that I try to help others to understand in family dynamics on how we need to pull ourselves together as a unit to be able to enhance ourselves, to be able to grow, to be able to move forward. And understanding that and coming forward and coming together, we have to look at the 3 different levels that I always like to preach to my clients and those that I speak to is the mind, body, and spirit connection. A lot of times in our society, we are separating a lot of things, and it causes more confusion than integration. Mentally, we have got to wake up. We've got to be aware. A lot of times, many of us do not want to wake up because we're not able to really see things for what they really are, because it makes us nervous. It takes us out of our comfort zone. That's not what we've been taught. A lot of times you think mentally is what we believe is what we are. And so if you're being programmed to think one way, that's the way you know. But in the meantime, it doesn't resonate with you internally. But that's what they tell you that you need to do. And it causes confusion. So understanding mentally and reprogramming, understanding cognitively and mentally how we need to come back together to change our thought patterns, to see things a different way, is going to help us balance the mind out. Spirit-wise, coming back together spiritually, find the source. We have a lot of youth now that have never even been exposed to a higher power. We don't have as many in our community going to church as we used to on Sunday. So you have a youth that is totally disconnected from a sense of a spirituality because they were never exposed to it. Or what they see as church is where they don't want to go. I don't want to sit up in church all day. I don't want to be there sitting. There's other things that we can do. So never knowing that relationship with a higher power is going to have a certain mindset that they're going to go out into the world to emulate. So understanding reconnecting with the spirit is a very important part that we must learn to do in reclaiming that spiritual side of us, as well as the body.
Are you from here?
This is a major area and a major concern as a holistic wellness practitioner, because many of us, especially in the African American community, we're disconnected from our bodies. More importantly, our females. Compared to other cultures, most times we have a lot of hang-ups with our size, we're not the same size. And even as a yoga instructor, this was something that was very key, that when I want to bring yoga to the community, some of the first things I hear are, well, I'm not small enough, or I'm not flexible enough, or I got to get in shape before I do yoga. That's totally the opposite. And even understanding that, I still have differences sometimes within the churches. Oh, we can't do yoga because that's associated with Hindu or Buddhism. And still not understanding that even yoga goes back to Egyptian times, that before other things and other cultures started enveloping yoga, we started it. It came from the origin of our people. So within that, reconnecting with our bodies. Reconnecting with our bodies doesn't necessarily mean having to go and run, but just get active. We are a community that are dealing with obesity, high blood pressure, heart problems, blood pressure problems. And really, like 80% of my clients that I deal with that are dealing with depression and anxiety is really coming from a lack of attention to our bodies. We need to reconnect because at the end of the day, we can heal ourselves. We should know, if you choose to go to a modern day doctor, you should be going to your doctor telling him what all is occurring with you, not asking him to tell you what's wrong with you. We are giving too much power to outside sources instead of reconnecting with ourselves. And once you do that and understand everything that you eat affects who you are what you eat. You would think more conscious about more live foods into your body. I always tell my client, you don't have to just jump out there and become a vegan automatically. That's traumatizing to some folks. When I said they come in with gout, feet swelling, I said, oh, first thing we need is cut that red meat. Cut the red meat? I can't do that. Well, you're going to continue having swollen feet. So there's consequences and choices, but once you understand what you're doing and how it impacts your body, you will start to make slow choices gradually. I always say that even with what you eat, how you eat it, how you eat your meat, the hormones in it. Females, we're having major issues with our reproductive systems now. And it's not just because of the time, but it's because, one, what we're eating, our foods are absorbed with so many different types of hormones, from the water to the chicken. We have the runoff and the fertilizer in the ground that we eat. So even if you may not be eating meat, you don't know where you still may be getting these hormones from if you're still drinking tap water. Also, understanding energy and how that works. The reproductive area, dealing with your second sacral chakra, is where we hold energy. So we're living in times now where when we love as females, we give ourselves our all. So when we connect intimately, we want to express that. But if we're living in times now where it's different roles, you have people say, oh, I'm dating, but I'm in an open relationship. What is an open relationship? You know, that's just another way. You're just spreading your energy out with several people all at one time. And understanding that as a female, if we are wanting to engage our energy with you, and if we cannot truly trust, we're not going to give all of us. So when you're holding back on energy, things can build. That means we're slowing up our energy process. This energy here is for letting go, letting things flow, releasing fears. So if we're holding on to a lot of fears, we're holding on to insecurities, that's stagnant energy that's going to develop in this area. And then you wonder why we're dealing with fibroids and tumors. And then the other thing you have to be aware of now when you go to the doctor with this, the first thing they want to say is hysterectomy. They're taking the birth of a nation. We birth millions of nations from our wombs, and we are letting the westernized society take away our right, and we wonder, where is our power? Why are we not moving forward? We've given it away. We are giving our wombs away, all because we choose not to change our mind, we choose not to decide to exercise, and we choose not to change our diets. So at that point in time, we have to realize how this is affecting not just individually, but as a community, as a culture, as a whole society from this point in time. So understanding this whole mind, body, spirit connection is very key. I tell a lot of my clients when they come in for wellness consultations, if you're stressed and that cortisol level is producing high amount of cortisol, you can go out here and run around the track 3 or 4 times a day. You will not lose weight. So for understanding, a lot of times I have to start with what is causing the stress. Let's work on the mind first to ease that, on how you can find different ways to deal with stress. And sometimes it may be a simple activity. Instead of going to get a Xanax or some of the anti-anxiety drugs, let's go walk around the track. Immediately walking around the track is going to reduce the cortisol level, and that's when you try to incorporate things like walking, yoga, and different exercises that help reduce that. Then from that way, then you're able to start adjusting your metabolism to start losing weight once that cortisol level lowers. So I say that because that's very frustrating for a lot of us. We get out there, we're working out, we're sweating, we messed up our hair, you know, we're working out. And then we wonder after 2-3 months, we still have not saw any results. We still stressed. We have not dealt with that. So I say that you can't just fix one area without fixing all 3 areas. And that's where the disconnect has come from, is because we just want to go over here and fix this, but then everything else is imbalance. Or we try to go fix it. We can go out here and run laps every day. We're running the miles and we're doing all of that. But if you're not right spiritually, it's going to cause an imbalance. So integrating all of this together, this is a time for us to step into our truths. We're in a new age. We're moving into the age of Aquarius. We are vibrating at a higher pace now at this point in time. And with this, we have to keep up with the change of energy. Many people wonder, why am I dealing with aches and pains at this point in time? A lot of people are going to the doctor for chest pains and major issues, thinking they're having a heart attack, and nothing is going, they're not finding anything wrong. Our bodies are recalibrating with this change of energy. We are vibrating at a faster pace. Many of us are having a hard time adjusting it, so it's kind of like aches and pains coming about in our joints that we may not be used to. But it's a lot of this shift that is occurring in the universe. We've had a lot of things metaphysically that is occurring. Polarity shifts have occurred in the universe. So understanding holistically, we are more than just the human beings. We are connected, universal. So as you hear these things cosmically that are occurring in the universe, it affects us too. Today at 2:09, super moon is in effect. It's one of the biggest moons that is closest to the sun at this point in time. You cannot think that if the moon can change the tides and the waves, it's automatically going to have a change in us. And I say this too from working in the school system, in the mental health hospitals. It is a difference when there is a full moon out there. I don't care what anybody says. It brings out certain behaviors and certain moves and that you may not even be prepared to deal with yourself. You know, it may be crying, feels, why am I crying? I'm not sad, what is going on? But it may make sense. And we move with the flow. It's all a flow, a constant flow. And within that, understanding how we must connect with this flow, how we must be in tune with the universe, being more aware of what is going on cosmically. And that's another example. A lot of times within churches and religion, you start asking about astrology, and they're like, oh, we don't talk about that in the church. We don't do that in the church. Understanding we came from a cosmic system with the stars lined up. We were born under the stars and lined up in certain cosmic linears for a reason. This is why you have the Virgos. This is why you have the Sagittarius. This is why you have the Aquarius. Different personality traits for us to come together as a whole unit for a whole purpose. And therefore, sometimes you need individualization for us to do what we're here to do, to be the beings that we are. So within this whole mind-body connect, I want everybody to understand to start paying more attention to yourself, living within your truths. A lot of us are losing jobs all of a sudden. Certain things in families are being shifted and disrupted. This is the time when unstable times are being shaken up for new foundations to be born. So you may go through certain health crises. That health crisis may be for you to wake up to know that it's time to make some changes. By the time it comes to a physical illness, we are at a serious point of disease. But I always say, if you go back to your thoughts and your mind, most physical problems we have starts within our mind. If you believe, it's no different if you've heard people that have gotten diagnosed with cancer. They've been fine that whole time until they go see that doctor and this is the diagnosis and then boom, it's from there. It's all in the mind. We have the ability to heal ourselves, and most of the time we do not use our own abilities. That comes back from that disconnect. The TV, the media, the food, all of that is basically dumbifying us. We are calcifying our pineal glands. We were given this gift for a reason to connect to our universe intuitively and spiritually. But due to the things we eat, due to the water that we're drinking with the fluoride, it's calcifying our pineal gland. It is time to open that up. It is time to understand and go within deep, go within our intuition and following our spiritual path is going to lead us to the direction of truth. Even though it may not make sense to you, a lot of things of the unknown may not. But if you follow that path and you do the right thing, it's going to be an easy flow. I say this also as the adult and with the youth. I do a lot of work with the youth, but I really want us to reach back and go back to re-educate and support our youth. I work part-time at Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte, North Carolina, at HBCU College, as a violence prevention coordinator. I work with the population that dealing with date rape, sexual assault, and sexual abuse. This disturbs me in my community of the amount of abuse that is occurring amongst our women. It goes back to more of the connection of what is going on within our reproductive area. We are holding a lot of trauma, generational trauma from slavery, from being raped and abused, and it's continuing now into our society until we stand up, until the men stand up and show the queens appreciation, until the time for the queens to step up and show our men appreciation, but more importantly, appreciate who we are. But because we've been disconnected with all these outside things, we don't know who we are to connect. So therefore, how can you marry another mate if you don't know who you are? How can you be a part of the community and the society if you don't know who you are? So you have to start within, and whatever that may be, but first of all, understanding who your higher power is, understanding that source flows through you. You don't have to sit in church 7 days a week, 3 or 4 hours a day to understand who that is. You don't have to go to their schools to understand the education. Not saying I don't believe in education, I work in higher education, but I tell each one of those college students, what you're doing now with internet, somebody else can go and read the same books that you are reading and get the same education without going into debt and paying a whole bunch of tuition. It's all about exercising that. There's a lot of people with college degrees now that are still unemployed. So it's not saying that college education or higher education is not an asset, in which it is, but in the meantime, we have to teach our youth more. We need to go back to teaching them a trade, understanding skills that they can live off of to make money, because some of these degrees right now are not paying the bills. So if something was to occur of a major life disaster or situation, how many of us are able to go out here and build our homes? How many brick masons do we have? How many electricians do we have? How many plumbers do we have? Those are all skills that we would need regardless of what was to take place. So these are things that we need to be enforced instead of thinking we have to send them to their schools. School is good, but there's still a lot of hard life knowledge that can teach, that can allow them to be more successful. And basically going back to community sustainability and collective community building. We've got to make some changes. We have to re-educate our younger generation so they can grow up and be productive citizens and go back for us to build our civilization. Our youth do not know we came from kings and queens. They do not know we had civilizations from the past. They may know about slavery, even the youth now, they don't want to see any. I try to get my younger brother who's only 20-something. I said, let's look at Arkansas, let's look at Roots. Oh, he did not want to sit down. I don't want to look at that. That's in the past. If we continue to have that mindset of not wanting to go back to understand those type of things, we're not going to be able to move forward. So from that, I want to thank you guys for listening and hoping that something I've said is going to trigger something, whether it's to eat right, whether it's to become more centered within yourself spiritually and find that truth that resonates with you. A lot of times I know growing up there were certain things I asked about in church and I just wouldn't get answers, but be quiet, don't ask questions. That frustrated me. I grew up in a Presbyterian church and that was already different. I went to college and all my friends were Baptists. We're in two different worlds here. It was like a culture shock. But even yet as I grew, it was the other things I wanted to know. I wanted to understand about this over here. I wanted to understand about this. At the end of the day, I found the truth within myself and just knowing that there is a higher power. And I have the ability to admit that and understanding that everything we do, we're walking in the Spirit. The words that you speak from your mouth is the Spirit coming through you, so be aware of everything you speak and what you say to others and how it can impact another person, because words are gifts. Understand from what you see. We have blessings in front of us daily. We sit there and we get frustrated. Why is this not working? I can't do this. Oh, I always hear, I don't have the money. If I had the money, I could do this. The universe places the things we need in front of us, but if we're so caught up in this matrix, you're not going to see that person, that one eye contact that you're just supposed to say at the gas pump, hi, and that person right there, you never know, can give you that job that you're looking for. So take time to understand who you are. Speak to your brothers and your sisters. Don't be afraid to look a person in the eye and say hi, who you are, because you don't know what that gift that person can give to you. Keep your ears open, hear, listen. Listening and understanding is two different things. You can hear the words, but may not really be hearing the words. So understand and anoint yourself when you leave the house. Like I said, that you see what you need to see spiritually, you hear what you need to hear, you speak, and at the end of the day, in all religions and all things, it comes back to the heart. If you live through love, if you live through truth, you cannot go wrong. And I just have to say, we have been lied to. We have been deceived. We have been presented with a lot of untruths, and we wonder why we feel like we're going crazy. We wonder why our youth are gangbanging. And even from the whole gangbanging perception is, yeah, we produce warriors. That's our culture. We produce young warriors. But at this point in time, the war that they fight is a wasteless, meaningless war. But the only reason they are engaged in that is because the gang life is giving them family. That's the only reason they got involved, is because it's food, shelter, and family. So if we step back up as a community and embrace these youth, or give them something, if they want to step up and be warriors, we need to be having them, we need to go back and protect our communities. If that's what they want to say, if they are bold enough to put a gun in their hand, we need to go back to the original time when the Black Panthers were teaching how to appropriately use weapons, knowing the rights in a responsible way. And I also say say, ladies, we need to learn how to protect ourselves and coming back together. Because at this point in time, they're taking power away. Every male that has a felony cannot carry a gun. We need to step up, arm ourselves, learn how to shoot, because if we have to step up and protect, we need to do that. So from that, I want to say thank you. If anybody has any questions, but I just want to reemphasize, it's time to reconnect. It's time to take back our origin and who we are and rebuild our communities. Yes. Yes.